Hey, welcome back to ClearPath Conversations. I'm Mark Bernardin, and today we're talking about something that should be simple, but somehow never is, and that's building your CSM toolkit from scratch. Not the toolkit that your company gave you, because odds are they didn't give you one, and not the shiny tech stack that leadership keeps promising because you're probably still waiting on approvals. I'm talking about the actual documents, templates, and trackers that you need to do your job well. The things that sit between you and chaos on a Tuesday afternoon when 3 accounts are escalating and nobody remembers who promised what. This is the stuff that separates CSMs who are constantly firefighting from the CSMs who are actually building something sustainable. And here's what I've learned after years of inheriting broken portfolios. Nobody's going to build this for you. So you build it yourself. Let me set the scene for you. You're 4 weeks into a new CSM role. Maybe it's your first CS job. Maybe it's your 5th. It doesn't matter. You've got 25 accounts. Some are green, some are yellow, a couple are flashing red, and nobody told you why. You've had onboarding meetings, you've shadowed a few calls, you've been told to just jump in and ask questions if you need help. But here's what you don't have. You don't have a clear way to track account health. You don't have a template for documenting customer conversations. You don't have a format for escalations that actually gets read, or a process for renewals that starts more than 2 weeks out. Or you don't have a method for keeping internal teams aligned without sending 17 Slack messages. I don't know if this sounds familiar, but this is where most CSMs live, especially in their first 90 days. You're told to just manage the relationship, but nobody tells you how to structure that work. You're told to drive adoption, but nobody shows you how to measure it. Or you're told to own the outcome, but nobody gives you the tools to own anything. So what do? You build your own toolkit. And you have to build it fast because you needed it yesterday. And let me walk you through what that actually looks like. Let's start with the most basic thing you need, an account tracker. Not a CRM, not Gainsight, not PlanHat, not Salesforce. Those are great if you have them, but most early stage companies don't. And even when you do have them, they're often configured wrong. they're missing data, or they're so overbuilt that nobody actually uses them. So you start with a spreadsheet. I know, super unsexy, but it works. Here's what goes into it. The account name, the primary contact, contract value, the renewal date, health status, the last touch date, the next action, and the owner notes. That's it. You don't need 15 columns. You don't need conditional formatting. You don't need a pivot table. You need a place where you can look at your entire portfolio in 30 seconds and know exactly what's on fire. I've used this exact structure at a few different companies. Sometimes I upgraded it. Sometimes I just kept it simple. But I always had it. Because when your VP asks you in a meeting, what's the status of the Lowe's account? You don't want to scramble. You want to be able to pull it up and answer it in 10 seconds. And that's what this tracker gives you. The next one is the call recap template. This one's non-negotiable. If you're not documenting your customer calls, you're setting yourself up for failure. Period. Here's why. 6 months from now, when that customer says, you told us you'd build that feature, you need proof of what was actually said. Or when your manager asks, why didn't you catch that risk earlier? You need to be able to show that you flagged it 3 months ago in writing. Or when the renewal comes up and the champions left the company, you need a paper trail that shows what success looked like under the old regime. This isn't about CYA. It's about creating institutional memory or tribal knowledge in a role where everything is always changing. So after every meaningful customer interaction, and I mean every one, you just write a recap. Doesn't have to be long. Half a page, maybe less. And here's the structure that I use. Just date and attendees, the key topics we discussed, any decisions we made, action items along with the owners, and dates, risks or concerns, and then what are the next steps? And then I'll send that out to the customer within 24 hours, just one business day. I'll also CC my internal team and then share that document in our share drive. And now it exists in writing, time-stamped, and searchable. You'd be surprised how often I've gone back to one of those recap documents from, 8 months ago and found the one sentence that saved a deal. This habit alone has made me more valuable than a lot of the CSMs that I've worked with because I remember, or more accurately, I have a system that remembers for me. Now, let's talk about escalations, because at some point, you're going to inherit a dumpster fire. Product isn't working, the customer's furious, sales overpromised something, support dropped the ball, engineer says that's not a bug, and somehow you're supposed to fix it. Here's what a lot of CSMs do. They panic. They send a frantic Slack message to 6 different people, different directions. They get on a call with the customer. They apologize 12 different ways to Sunday. They promise to look into it, and then they drown in follow-ups. Don't do that. Instead, you document the escalation properly. You create a single source of truth. You make it easy for people to help you. And here's the template that I use. Just the account name and the priority level, and then an issue summary, just a single paragraph. The business impact, what happens if we don't fix this? And then the timeline. When did this issue start? When does it need to be resolved? The customer sentiment. Are they frustrated, angry, about to churn? Internal owners. Who needs to be involved? Proposed resolution. What are we actually going to do? And then status updates. I update this daily until the issue is closed. And then I put it in a shared doc. I link it to every email that goes out. I don't make people hunt for context. And here's the key. I don't just dump the problem on someone else's desk. I come with a proposal. I say, here's the issue. Here's what I think we should do. Can you help make this happen? And that's how you turn an escalation into a solved problem instead of a blame game. Now let's talk about renewals. If you're managing renewals, you need a renewal tracker separate from your account tracker, because renewals aren't just another task. They're the entire reason your job exists. And here's what goes into your renewal tracker: the account name, the renewal date, the contract value, the renewal owner, sometimes it's you, sometimes it's sales, the health score at 90 days out, risks identified, the expansion opportunity, yes or no, status, if it's on track, at risk, or churned, and then the last renewal conversation date. And then finally, what the next action is. And here's the rule. You start tracking this 90 days before the renewal date minimum. Not 30 days, not 2 weeks, 90 days minimum. Because if you wait until the last minute, you've already lost. At that point, you're in reactive mode. You're scrambling. You're hoping. But if you start 90 days out, you've still got time to fix things, time to course correct, time to build the case for expansion or make the hard call if this one's not renewing. I've saved deals that looked dead at 90 days out because I still had time to work the problem. And I've let deals go that I knew at 90 days out were never coming back. And I didn't waste that precious energy pretending otherwise. That's what the tracker gives you: visibility, clarity. And with that visibility comes control. Now, next up is the customer health scorecard. This one's tricky because every company and every CSM defines health differently. Some use product usage, some use NPS, some use engagement frequency, some just make it up based on CSM vibes. Here's my advice. If your company has a health score system, use that, but also build your own, because the company's health score is often a lagging indicator. It's built for reporting, not for action. Your health score needs to be real time. It needs to tell you what to do today. And here's what I track. Product usage. Are they logging in? Feature adoption. Are they using the core value drivers? Engagement frequency. When was the last time we talked? Sentiment. Do they seem happy, frustrated? Executive sponsorship. Do we have a champion, and how many champions? Expansion signal. Are they asking about more licenses or more features? Risk signals. Are they ghosting us? Are they complaining? Or are they threatening to leave? I score each of these on a simple scale. It could be green, yellow, red. It could be 1 through 5. It really doesn't matter. What matters is that I'm looking at the whole picture, not just a single data point. Because I've seen accounts with perfect product usage scores that churned. because nobody liked working with us. And I've seen accounts with terrible usage that renewed because the executive champion loved us and was willing to invest in change management. Health isn't one thing. It's a composite. And your toolkit really needs to reflect that. Now let's look at stakeholder maps. This one's easy to skip, but it's also one of the most powerful tools that you can build. A stakeholder map is really just a visual representation of who matters at the account. Who's the economic buyer? Who's the champion? Who's the day-to-day user? Who's the skeptic? And who used to be involved but isn't anymore? And most importantly, who has the influence? Because here's the thing, the person you talk to every week might not be the person who decides whether you renew. And if you don't know that, you're in trouble. I keep my stakeholder maps really simple, a table or a slide. Names, titles, roles, sentiment, influence level. And then I revisit it and update it every quarter or whenever there's a major change, like a reorg or a departure, maybe a new executive coming in. And I share this with my internal team. So we're all aligned on who we're talking to and why. This has saved me more times than I can count, because when a champion leaves, I already know who the next best relationship is, and I'm not starting from scratch. Now, here's one that most CSMs don't think about. A customer communication log. Now, this is different from your call recaps. This is a high-level view of all touch points. Every email, every call, every Slack message, every support ticket, every NPS survey response. You're not writing essays here. You're just logging. Date, type of communication, topic, and outcome. Now, why does this matter? Because 6 months from now, when the customer says, "We never heard from you," you can pull up this log and show them that you reached out a dozen times. Or when your manager asks, "How engaged is this account?" you can say, "Well, we had 14 interactions in the last quarter, and here's the breakdown." It's proof, it's visibility, it's defense. And it takes 5 seconds per entry. Now, let's talk about something that nobody wants to build, but every CSM needs. And that's a churn postmortem template. When you lose an account, you need to document why. Not for punishment, not to assign blame, but to learn. Because if you don't analyze your losses, you'll just keep making the same mistakes. And here's what I capture in my churn postmortems. The account name and value, the churn date, the reason given by the customer, the actual reason, what we think actually happened, early warning signs, what should we have caught, what we tried, did we attempt to save play, what worked, what didn't, the lessons learned, and also changes that we're making as a result. I don't write a novel. I keep it factual. I keep it honest. I share it with the team because everyone needs to learn from it. I've written postmortems where the lesson was, we should have walked away from this deal during the sales cycle. And that's valuable because now we know what a bad fit looks like. I've written postmortems where the lesson was, we didn't engage the executive soon enough. And that changed how I approach every account after that. This template, it's not fun to use, but it makes you sharper. And it makes your team sharper. Now let's talk a bit about internal alignment tools, because one of the hardest parts of being a CSM isn't managing the customer. It's managing your own company. You need product to prioritize a feature request. You need support to escalate a ticket. You need sales to loop you in before they renew. You need marketing to send a case study request. And if you don't have a system for tracking all of that, you're just hoping people remember. They won't. So I use an internal request tracker. It's just a simple spreadsheet. Request type, who I asked, when I asked, what the status is, and follow-up date. It keeps me from being the person who's constantly asking, hey, did you ever get to that thing? Instead, I just check my tracker. I see it's been 2 weeks. I follow up once, and then I escalate if needed. This makes me more effective internally. And it makes me less annoying, which matters. Now, here's the toolkit item that nobody talks about, but everyone should have. A customer wins log. Every time something good happens with a customer, you write it down. They hit a usage milestone. They give you a great NPS score. They agreed to be a reference. They expanded their contract. They sent you a thank you email. You log it with the date, with the context, with proof if you have it. Now, why is this? Because when performance review time comes around, you're not scrambling to remember what you did for the last 6 months. You've got a list, a detailed, date-stamped, outcome-driven list of value that you delivered. And when you're job hunting, you've got stories, real stories, not generic bullet points. I took a red account worth $300,000 and turned it green in 60 days by implementing a structured get-well plan and securing executive buy-in. It's different than I managed customer relationships. Your wins log is your career insurance. So start that policy today. Let me talk about just one more thing. Your onboarding checklist. If you're onboarding new customers, you need a checklist, not a vague process document, a literal checklist. Step 1, kickoff call scheduled. Step 2, success plan drafted. Step 3, integrations configured. Step 4, training completed. Step 5, first value milestone hit. Whatever your process is, write it down, make it repeatable, and make it visible. Because when you're onboarding 3 customers at once and your manager asks, where are we with that new account? You don't want to guess. You want to say, we're at step 4 of 7. The training's done. The next milestone is scheduled for next Wednesday. That's the power of a checklist. It makes the invisible visible. Here's the thing about all these tools. None of them are complicated. You don't need a CS platform. You don't need fancy software. You don't need anyone's permission. You just need a Google Drive folder, a few spreadsheets, and the discipline to use them. I've built this toolkit for every company I've worked at. Sometimes I inherited pieces of it. Sometimes I started from scratch. But I've never regretted building it because it's the foundation of everything else. When I'm running a QBR, I pull from my call recaps and my wins log. When I'm managing an escalation, I use my escalation template. When I'm forecasting renewals, I'm looking at my renewal tracker and my health scorecard. When I'm proving my value internally, I'm referencing my stakeholder maps, my communication logs, my customer wins. It all connects, and it all makes you better at your job. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. Mark, I barely have time to do my actual job. How am I supposed to build all of this? And that's a fair question. Now, here's my answer. You don't build it all at once. You start with the account tracker. That takes 15, 20 minutes. Then next week, you add the call recap template. That takes 10 minutes. Then the week after that, you start logging escalations properly. You build it incrementally. One tool at a time as you need it. And here's the truth. These tools don't add time to your day. They save time. Because once you have them, you stop reinventing the wheel every time something comes up. You stop digging through Slack threads trying to remember what someone said. You stop explaining the same context to 5 different people. You just point to the doc and you move on. That's the efficiency gain. That's why this is worth it. And if you want templates for any of this, I've built all of these already. You can find them at clearpathcx.com. They're all designed for the working CSMs who need this stuff yesterday. But honestly, you don't necessarily need my templates. You can build your own. The format doesn't matter. What matters is that you have a system. Because without a system, you're just reacting. You're just surviving. But with a system, you're building. You're improving. You're in control. And that's the difference between a CSM who's drowning and a system who's leading. Let me close with this. When I took over my first truly broken portfolio, I had 28 accounts and 0 documentation. No call notes, no health scores, no context on why half of them were red. I spent the first 2 weeks just building that tracker, just documenting what I had, just creating visibility where there was none. And I felt like I wasn't doing real work. It felt like I should be on calls, fixing problems, saving accounts. But here's what I learned. Building the toolkit was the real work, because once I had it, I could actually start fixing things. I could prioritize. I could see patterns. I could communicate clearly with my internal team. And 6 months later, that portfolio was in the best shape it had ever been. Not because I worked harder, but because I worked smarter. And that's what the toolkit does. It makes you smarter. It makes you more effective. It makes you someone that people trust. So if you take one thing from this episode, it's this. Stop waiting for someone to hand you the tools you need. Build them yourself. Start small, but start today. And in 30 days, you'll be a completely different CSM. Now, in the next episode, we're going to talk about something that is at the heart of everything I do, the Path to Green framework. What it is, why every CSM needs one, and how to build one for your most at-risk account. If you've been following along with this fundamental series, that's where we're heading next. From building your toolkit to using it to rescue accounts that everyone else has written off. Until then, you can find all the templates and resources that I mentioned today at clearpathcx.com. Follow the show if you haven't already, and connect with me on LinkedIn at linkedin.com/in/Mark Bernardin. And if you found this episode helpful, send it to another CSM who's drowning in chaos right now, because they need to hear this. Thank you for being here. Thank you for doing this work. And thank you for showing up and delivering every single day. I'll talk to you soon.